Hello again. The African Diaspora Forum has raised concern that thousands of migrant children will be left in limbo. The group says they have been notified by the Mpumalanga government that they will not admit children of migrants without IDs into schools. This follows proposals by the Department of Home Affairs that children born in this country to foreign parents will not receive a South African birth certificate. The forum has written to the Basic Education Department to resolve the matter and is considering approaching the courts to force the admission of migrant pupils. Let's get you more on this. I'm joined in studio by Vusmuzi Sibanda, chairperson of the African Diaspora Forum. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. This issue, one just can't wrap their heads around it. It just doesn't make sense. So you go through all the years of schooling and you get to matric only to be told that you cannot write for your matric because you don't have an ID at no fault of your own. What is the situation? Perhaps let's paint a picture overall for migrant children and accessing education in this country.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting us. I think the biggest problem that we have at this particular stage is that we've got two pieces of legislation or departments that are supposed to be working together, which is basically the Department of Home Affairs and the Department of Basic Education. Now, Home Affairs is not already. We had a regulation put in last year that talks about the fact that they will not be giving children born from migrants, birth certificates. They're not going to be registering, but they'll give them just a small piece of paper, which will be to allow them to approach, their embassy so they can get birth certificate. But then we've got a bigger problem that has been going on, I think, brewing already for the last 2 or 3 years, where, for example, Department of Basic Education says, a child who does not have, an ID or birth certificate cannot write matric. Now, we've seen already schools, basically not taking children, even, preschoolers, they can't be taking children, especially when they don't have birth certificate. One of the reasons being that some of these schools are NPOs, they get money from Department of, Social Welfare, which means that, they've got to submit, list of learners so that they get, that money, which is meant to be, grants. Now, what this means is that they will not take any child who is not registered, who does not have a birth certificate, because that will not help them get that money. So at the end of the day, that means that those children are left outside. And the biggest problem, which is actually very, very cruel and so insensitive and inhumane, is a situation where somebody goes through all the 12, 13 years in school, only to be told while they're in grade 12 that we cannot register you, for grade 12. For grade 12. A case, for example, that we have in Mpumalanga is a situation where one child was sent away last year, in 2017, because they didn't have a birth certificate. But at the beginning of the year, they were then taken back again into school, only to be told in March that, well, you still don't have, an ID, so we are not going to be able to register you to become a child. Grade 12 people, so that you can write your matric. Now, in essence, what this means is you've got children that are born here in South Africa. They've been here for all their life. And this child that has been in the country for all their life, they don't know any other country. Now, once this child has not been able to write matric, we're basically saying that the government is releasing children into the streets to become criminals, because there is nothing else that they can do. Now, you're not only looking at that, you're looking at South Africa, which ratifies, the Convention on the Rights of the Children. And the convention is very clear, that, for example, in Article 28, that, every child has a right to basic education, that all state parties must ensure that. And it actually says that basic, education, for example, primary education is compulsory and it must be free. Now, you also have got the South African Constitution, Section 28 and Section 29, that talks, to the rights of the children, and Section 29, the right to education. Now, you're looking at a situation where the government says, it's all right, we'll let these children go to school, for example, from grade 1. And normally when they go to matric, you're looking at somebody who's almost 17, 18. And now they're no longer going to be treated as a child by a major. So you're looking at a situation where when they get to matric already, they will not be treated as a child.
In your engagement with the Department of Home Affairs and the Department of Education, what are they saying? Are they perhaps going to apply an exception to the rule where these children are concerned? Like you mentioned, this is cruel.
Well, look, what we are doing, we have written to the Minister of Basic Education, for example, and seeking a meeting sometime, towards the end of last year, and we were told that the minister is quite busy. And unfortunately, we did, plead with them that, look, we don't want this situation, to continue, before schools open in 2019. But we still, we just got, again, an acknowledgement towards the end of the year that, our request for a meeting, is acknowledged, but the minister is busy and they are going to be coming back to us, and they gave us a reference number. Now, we're looking at a situation where we have not gotten any official communication as far as that is concerned. And the Department of Home Affairs, basically, we've also written to them, we've also commented, on the regulation that, basically discriminates, children from getting, the birth certificate, which again violates, the Convention on the Rights of the Child that says that, anything that will make, the child stateless should not basically be engaged in, and that children should not be discriminated, because the convention basically is based on 4 major principles, which is non-discrimination, the right to life, and development and education.
What lessons can we draw from other countries? South Africa is not the only country that has migrant children. There's many other countries, but they allowed access to education. Very,
very true. I mean, for example, you look at what we have, for example, in Cambridge examinations, which is an examining board, that is based, in the United Kingdom. I mean, that is operating in quite a number of countries, I mean, the world over. When you go to school to write an examination, it's not your ID that is required. When you don't have an ID or any way you can write, you can simply write your date of birth. So the whole idea is to get to a point where, for example, we make the ID number compulsory for somebody to write, an examination, especially a school living, certificate. I think it's very cruel and unacceptable.
Vusumuzi, let's talk about what this actually does to children. Perhaps give us practical examples of children who have gotten to a certain point and they're told, sorry, you can't write your final year because you don't have an ID.
I think the first example that I gave, I would refer to again is the one from Mpumalanga. We've got a group in Katlehong that is led, the Leratong Rescue and Advisory Center. There are about 5 schools, where this organization operates, and the school, for example, takes an average of 1,500 children, of which over 80% of these children are born of either a parent who is a migrant with a local parent, and some of them are purely, children that are coming from outside South Africa. And the primary schools enroll 1,500 learners. So if you're looking at 5, you're looking at about 7,500 learners that are coming into the system to get some education. But these children's future, as far as writing matric is concerned, is not given at all. So we're looking at a situation now where we need to meet with the principals, as schools open right now, to say, okay, we know that you are taking in these children, but what is the where exactly are we heading to? Because you take in these children, and then what? Because at the end of the day, they don't get to write the matric, because everybody who goes to school, the idea is, I want to go to school, go through my primary education, go through my secondary, get my matric so I can get to university. But this is not what is happening.
Tragic. We've still got a lot of work to do.
Yes, it is a lot.
And it's urgent. Thank you very much. Vusumuzi Sibanda, chairperson of the African Diaspora Forum.